Welcome back, my nomads. Welcome back to another Bitcast. I'm here with Zach again. What's going on, Zach?
Hey man, how you doing? We got some awesome stuff to talk about, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Going to talk about an old school gym. Old school gym. Taking it back. Damn, it's crazy to say. This is
It's a
what 20,
22-year-old movie.
20, yeah, 21 years ago. It's
Jeez.
crazy. The same year that Spider-Man came out,
Yeah, but
2002. Jeez.
before we do that, we got some big time stuff to talk about current events wise, like
Oh,
this the
yep.
the strike coming to an end. What's going on, man? Like, break it
Supposedly
down.
coming to an end.
Yeah.
They still got to ratify it, but the WGA has come to terms with the big wig cats, and um, they came up with a deal. Um, it seems like it was like both sides lost some things, both sides gained some things, but overall, it was the best deal that they could make for both sides, and it still has to be ratified, I believe.
Yeah,
It
I
still
don't
has
see
to be
that being an
voted on.
issue because they have to go back to work, and
Yeah.
I
Everybody
can't
wants
even.
to go back to work. The big wigs want them to go back to work. They want to go back to work.
You're
It's
when it comes to negotiating, I'll tell you on the business side, when it comes to compromise, the whole point is you're not winning everything. You have to give up something to get it. That's just what happened. So I'm glad there was some compromise. It looks good to me. Um, what do you think as an actor or a writer who,
so it's interesting. It's interesting because excuse me. And I wanted to ask you about this. I didn't hear anything because we're not in the business, but I didn't hear anything about residuals or residual changes. But I did hear that a salary for a writer for a job that'll take up to 2 months would be 90K, about 90K.
for 2 months of work.
Yes. So I'm like,
That's not too bad for a minimum amount for an entry level.
no, that's
Because you
great.
got to,
That's
I
great
mean,
because
you got to think about it. Like you got to pay for healthcare, which I don't think is included, right?
no, no, you once
Healthcare,
you
all
make
that
up
other
to like,
stuff.
I know for actors, I don't know if it's the same for writers, but in the union, if you make 25K a year, you qualify for health coverage, which is crazy to think that so many people in the unions aren't making up to 25K a year, which is
100% do
crazy.
commercials, all that stuff. Like people are doing one and done. It's
It's crazy.
no. There's a lot of good changes finally, and I think we're at a place that, um, correct me if I'm wrong, that I think the next go around it's going to be a little easier because you've seen record profits from these companies, and I
Oh
think the
yeah.
biggest thing is AI writing, and not even going into that, like, do you think we're kicking the can down the road and this is inevitable, or do you think we're going to stick with the human script?
I think we're going to stick with the human script. It's still, AI is still a tool. You know, I
Right.
I don't work in the big industry, but I do work in like a form of film industry, specifically video journalism. And I talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, I used AI for the script. I used Chat GPT for the script. But every time they say that, they say I had to change some things, so it was kind of wild. I mean, it's still a tool. It helps you gives you ideas, it helps you get your foot in the door, but it still needs human intervention. And
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you though, I don't know if you would know anything about this, but because the salaries sound a lot better than they were for writers, do you think writers and actors are still, excuse me, entitled to residuals?
Of course. Why wouldn't they? Just because you get something up front?
Well, it depends. It depends, right? Because if you get like 10K up front, of course you should get some residuals. But if you're getting 90K for 2 months' work,
I guess it depends who you are and how you negotiate, right? Like these are beginning standards. So Imagine you're a lawyer and you go into a law firm and you're whatever, right? You're
Mhm.
obviously going to negotiate because your skills or what you bring to the table is going to be different than someone else. This is
Right.
not a one size fit all. This is just a bare minimum of what you're getting, which I think is good, especially for new guys who don't have the ability to negotiate right away.
100%, man. I watched this video by John Campia. Shout out to John Campia and crew. He got me thinking. You know, he said he was like, "Look, I used to work in the industry. I was uh he was a video journalist, but he was more of like talent where he would like be in those shows on the internet talking about movies and stuff." And he was like, "Look, I worked for all these like Collider and stuff like that. I did a job. I left. I got paid. I left. You know." He was like, he said he doesn't like the fact that actors and writers get residuals because it tells everybody else in the industry that they're more important. And he was like, if you're getting a fair wage, you did a service, you put out a product, you
But
know,
that's meritocracy. Like, yes, there's people more important than others, and you can't really fight that. It is what it is. Get what
but
I'm saying?
and just to play devil's advocate, because I do believe, they are entitled to residuals, right? To play devil's advocate,
Mhm.
is there anybody in the industry, the film industry, who has worked more and paid less than the VFX artist?
You tell me, because that's just this from a casual person who likes watching this stuff. You tell me if this is something that is the case or not, because I don't have a measuring like pool to like compare.
I think they, to this day, I think right now, and again, I may be ignorant, but I think they are the most underappreciated and overworked and underpaid facet of film right now.
Mhm.
Because now it's not like VFX is a privilege, it's a necessity now for every aspect of filming. Even,
Right.
I'll give you an example. You remember that show Mindhunter?
Oh, I love that show.
I love it. I love it. On Netflix.
Yeah.
They had a lot of VFX shot in that show?
For what?
For environment replacements, environment enhancements.
Oh,
Um,
because the sets are probably crazy expensive.
exactly. You know how expensive it is to build a set, build a street, a neighborhood, a street for what is it? Take place in the 70s or the 60s? I think the 70s, late
Oh,
70s.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, no, the set thing makes sense. I get it, but because I'm so used to seeing movies that have 100% side
Yeah, sci-fi
VFX effects
stuff and
versus
fantasy.
nothing, or it's
Exactly.
natural, and you're not really thinking about like the ones that are kind of like, well, we need this for 15%, but that 15% is really important.
Exactly. I've seen them because, it's a TV show. Well, it was a TV show. Sometimes actors can't be on set the same days. So I've seen them turn a scene for an actor into a different whole different season to where they filmed in the summer and then they made it look like it was winter. And
Yeah.
then they changed the streets because the streets were different in the 70s. They changed the cars on the streets. They changed the sky. They replaced the sky. Like you can go on YouTube and look up VFX breakdown of like regular shows that don't have like fantasy elements or sci-fi. You can just see what they do. They tweak this, they tweak that. VFX is a staple part of filmmaking now. Like people use it to set design, they do it to costume design, they do it to storyboard. You know, it's everywhere. You can't escape it.
Makeup.
Makeup, makeup touch-ups. I
Yep.
mean, you can see 1,000 videos online about Marvel characters, about superhero suits being touched up, so you can't see the seams. They did it for Black Panther, they did it for Spider-Man.
Dude, that's crazy. You know who's
Yeah.
one person I'm sure didn't need it? Margot Robbie. I think she's just fine the way she is, though.
Did she ever have a super suit?
No, just I'm just saying in general, like with the makeup and stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah,
mm,
yeah. Yeah, that's
tell you
true.
what. No, but no, there's just certain people are are just blessed that way, and some others don't have her genes. So it is what it is.
I guess. But yeah, I mean they have touch ups for everything, man. Oh, that's a good example. Mark, you were talking about Margot Robbie. Wolf of Wall Street. You know how much VFX shot they had in that?
Tons.
Yeah, they had
Why
tons.
that's why I mentioned her, because that was the first movie that I thought of.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Or what about Superman with getting rid of Henry Cavill's mustache because of Mission Impossible?
dear God.
But no, that's the thing though. You know what I mean? Like he was contractually like obliged to keep that mustache for like a year.
Yeah, that was petty of Paramount to do that. I mean,
You're
that's
like, yeah, we know
wild.
you're doing Superman. We're gonna make their job so much harder. You can't shave this bad boy.
Could you imagine being the VFX artist that had to try to figure that out? Like, what do you do? What do you do in Batman versus Superman? Oh, I'm taking out his mustache. And it is so hard.
I'm sure it's extremely
They
hard
had to
to.
reconstruct a top lip, which is if you know anything about VFX, the top lip is so hard because there's so many muscles and like
I think everyone knows because of Napoleon Dynamite's. You know, it spent me an hour finishing the shading of your upper lip, so we already know that
and
doing
even
the.
and so yeah, they're I believe they're the most underpaid and overworked. But also John Campea also made another statement that is kind of true. It is the fault of the VFX artists that it's partly on their fault that they're in this position, right? Because
Yeah.
let's say I get hired by Marvel to do a Marvel film. They my VFX producer's like, look, we need 20,000 VFX shots and we'll only do it for what 50 million. And then the we'll put out the bid and these VFX houses will bid on doing it. And whoever has the smallest bid, obviously, we choose them. You know, like,
For most of the
oh,
time, like imagine like an Avengers
mhm.
scenario, right? Like, don't they have VFX stuff in house where they can, or they have them like on a contract that they don't have to do these bids because I feel
It's
like VFX
41
is kind of like
people.
a lawyer. The less you spend on it, the more it's going to show.
It's 41 people that I heard of. There's only 41 in-house Marvel VFX artists, and
Fascinating.
then they outsource the rest of the work and that bidding stuff.
So, how important is the outsourced work? What is it?
Very important. I mean, if you go to a movie, a Marvel movie, and then you
You
look
have
at the
41
credits,
people from Marvel? That's nuts, given that all of their movies
did you just
require it.
hear? Did you hear they just unionized? They decided good for them,
Good,
but it's people are
good,
like this is
good.
a big step in the VFX community. I'm like, but there's only 41 of them.
Because
There
there
only
has
one.
been
There's
because
only one of
there's
them.
been a need. Like you said, this is a new need. This is something that every movie and show does now, regardless if they like it or not. And
Yep.
you know, I think this is going to be give it a few years. There's going to be a reckoning where they're going to be highly sought after.
I think all the
And
VFX houses need to come together and unionize and stop outbidding each other because it's making the cost go down and the work go up, and it's putting them in a bad
vastly
position.
underpaying them.
Yes, yes, they need to unionize.
These profits are insane, dude.
I know.
It's like oil companies, right? Like oil companies are making a lot of money, and you see gas. Like, look, I'm not going to try to get an economics thing, but you see gas prices at $5 a gallon, and then you see like all-time highs in terms of profits. These oil companies, and you're like, you know, you put two to two together, you're like, what's up with this? And
Yeah, it's
it's
wild.
complicity. Like the large, I would say, five oil companies are complicit with one another in terms of how they dictate it, and everyone's happy. You know,
Like you said, the 12 large guys dictate. So these VFX companies need to come together and do something because
right?
they're running each other out of business. So
Which isn't good because
yeah,
then they can
yeah,
just outsource it, right? To like
yeah.
China or somewhere like that. And you're like, and then that's the last thing you need.
They need to do something, man. But I'm glad the Marvel house. It's either Marvel or Disney. No, it was Marvel. It was the Marvel house decided to unionize. So 41 people, and I hope it's a ripple effect that
Yeah,
passes on to all the other VFX houses
right.
because we
Okay.
desperately need that. I mean, the Rhythm and Hughes, the guys who did Life of Pi, who won an
Good
Oscar
movie.
after doing that, had to go out of business.
That sucks because Ang Lee does a good job and he does all of the right things. I'm sure he had a choice in who got that.
Yeah,
So that's a shame.
it's crazy because I forgot what else they did, but they did something before Life of Pi that was great too. Like they had to go out of business because they just went bankrupt. Man, the business is crazy. There's documentaries you can watch on YouTube, and they're heartbreaking to see how these people survive and have families. And sometimes they won't see their families for like 4 months because they're working 18-hour days, like 4 months
They
straight.
want to
Like
get
it's
it done
crazy.
as soon as possible so they can get the next bid and undercut it. It's just
It's wild because I remember back in the day, it used to take at least 2 years to make a movie, and now Marvel will announce a movie and it's out like the next year. It's like, how did they do that?
because they're doing multiple functions at once,
Yeah, and they're
which
just
is
pumping it out, pumping it out.
which is reducing the quality because then you see issues with editing and all that because then they're
Oh
taxed like, oh, you got 3 weeks to do this, by the way. I'm like, I just got this like yesterday.
yeah, yeah.
Editing probably takes up half of the post production. Tell me I'm wrong.
It remind it reminds me of remember in the Mandalorian episode when there was a whole crewman in the back. People were
Yeah.
like, "Yo, there's a guy in jeans and a t-shirt in the back holding a boom mic." And then they had to digitally edit them out for that episode. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, what are we doing?
He should have been shooting people with a blaster in his
I'm
boom
like,
light. His boom light was a weapon,
and you
you
don't
know?
realize how many hands that goes through for no one
Tons,
to catch it. That just
tons,
shows you that people are overworked
and being rushed.
and being rushed.
Oh, it's
Because
like Braveheart, right? Braveheart had a gaff where they had a delivery truck. One of the scenes,
right,
Mel Gibson's giving his fiery speech about, seed from England, and you got a UPS driver in the back
I
just
give them
hanging
a
out.
pass because I'm pretty sure that was filmed on actual film. So I give them a pass.
1995, yeah, editing actual film. That's a.
Yeah, and then you can't
I'm
see
like, we're
what
not
you're
doing this scene again.
you can't see what you're getting. I don't know if they have the monitors yet. They developed a way for a little recorder to show what's on the film.
Such a good
But
movie, though.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, despite Mel Gibson, it was a great, great
What do
film.
you? Oh God, I don't understand the hate with Mel Gibson, dude. Like, I don't.
You don't
Okay, he
understand the
said
hate. You, a Jewish man, doesn't understand.
he said some anti-Semitic stuff. Move on. Who has it at this point? It's locker room talk, guys. All right.
I guess when you're black or Jewish and everybody in the world hates you, you gotta just like what you like and keep it moving because everybody's shit. So
Listen,
who
I've
cares?
made jokes before with this. Like, stereotypes are mostly true for a reason, and that's what I'm going to say at it. All right. I'm probably
Good
going to get
God,
canceled over that, but whatever, it's fine.
type show. Oh my gosh. But yeah,
But
man.
here, so I'm also excited to tell you after 186 hours of Starfield, I have made my decision on it's really good. And I'm glad that there was that much replayability.
I'm pretty sure you were thinking that like 10 hours in. It's really good.
It took you I mean, you could kind of see how it's building. You're like, okay, I can't really travel and do a whole lot yet because it really like stifles you. But the stifling is on purpose because it's like Dark Souls or what was the Elden Ring where you know right away you shouldn't be going in there because there's some enemies that like whack you fast, and that's what Starfield does. So, and they give you nice numbers with colors. If it's red and it's high, don't go in there because you will die.
Even if it's
And
yellow,
I
be
finally got a
careful.
chance to like actually go to these different planets that have like these crazy one-off settlements with like crazy things happening, and it's like so secluded, and it was really cool. Obviously, I've explored all of it because I've been divvying up my time between that and Cyberpunk. But
Oh yeah.
it's I'm I'm happy something like that finally came out and we can actually start putting movies and video games in the same category in terms of writing and cinematography.
I feel like video games have taken over the top spot for storytelling
I
because
agree.
the video games that have come out lately are just wow. For the past like 5 to 6 years,
Yeah, I
it's
think
been
it started
crazy.
with The Witcher 3.
Yeah,
Witcher 3 was like, wow. And then you had Mass Effect, Andromeda was whack, but then they redid the original ones. You're like, oh my goodness, like this is something. And then you had the Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order
I
games, and
mean,
you're like, okay,
I might even take it a step back. The storytelling in the first few Assassin's Creed games were pretty
we're
good,
great. Yeah.
you know. And I
They
mean,
got boring after a while. It's kind of like a regurgitated.
yeah, yeah, to where they didn't have much of a story anyway. But um, but God of War 2, Ghost of
Yes.
Tsushima, what's that
Final
game?
Fantasy 16 was extremely well done with the story.
Right, and what was that game by Guerrilla Games with the girl, the redheaded chick, with the bow and arrow? But those were good storytelling. I mean, there's so many good storytelling out there in video games. By the way, did you see? We might have talked about the Cyberpunk anime on Netflix.
Hmm.
What did you think of that? Did we talk about that? I
We
talked
haven't
about it
talked
with
about it,
somebody.
but it's. I think it's okay. I prefer live action on something like that, if you ask me, because the game set it up perfectly for live action.
I actually liked the anime aesthetic. I thought it was perfect, but the storytelling lacked so hard.
It's based on like books, adult novels, something like that, right? Like early '90s, I want to say, late '80s.
Well, it was the original story for the game. The story was just not good.
Well, I'm talking about the genre in general. Like
Oh, the
genre in
genre,
general has been
yeah,
around, yeah, late
yeah,
'80s, '90s, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
they
yeah,
kind of follow a similar thing, megacorps running over the whole shebang, all that stuff. So
yeah.
I'm I'm I like the Phantom Liberty game DLC. It's kind of long, but for $30, I think it's worth it. The fact that you have someone like Idris Elba in there is like mind blowing. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
But
man. I mean, I'm happy that CD Project Red got to tell the story that they originally wanted to, despite their
yes,
publisher forcing them to release the game 3 years earlier than they wanted
if it
to.
just got released today, it would have been a masterpiece. No one would have hated it.
Because remember when it came out and all that controversy happened,
Oh,
the developer CD Project Red said they wanted to release it this year, right? Like
yeah, they
2023.
wanted. They originally wanted it now because they didn't
Yeah,
want the old system support on it. And as you know,
yeah. I don't know
when you
why they
have when you
pushed
have
that so
multiple you have
hard.
multiple generations trying to like you're adapt with it, there's a lot of crap.
Yeah, I forgot who their publisher was, but they forced them to release it on the older consoles, which obviously that's going to not only did they shorten their time frame of when the game was going to come out, but they took a bunch of their developers off of the main game to put it on the port for the PS4 and the Xbox One, and it's they just did too much crap.
$4 billion lost later. You learn a lesson or two.
I mean, all those refunds, all the money you spent on marketing.
Capital hit because it's a publicly traded company. I mean, there's a lot of things that
That's true. PlayStation took
that.
it off its store. What,
Yep.
after a week or something like
Mm-hmm.
that? It's wild, bro. And then
Oh,
Steam follows suit, I think, after that.
yeah.
But
I remember getting an email. Hey, do you want to refund it? You can if you want. I'm like, no, hold on to it. It's fine.
because you knew though. I mean, you were one of those people who knew like they're going to keep working on it and they're going to get it to where they want
Well,
it
you
to be.
can't you can't invest that kind of cash into it and not work on it. It's EA has done that so many times and people realize like, hey, we just don't trust them anymore because you're losing your credibility because it's not like Project Red hasn't had good games in the past. They have, and you want to keep that trust. Like, hey, we can do this and we're not going to be a shill. Ironic that they're an anti-corporate show when that's what Cyberpunk's about and it was the worst launch ever.
I think it's I don't know how EA is still in business. I think the only reason they're in
Because they're
business is because
rich.
of
They have a lot of
licensing,
cash, dude. Yes, they have Madden. They have all the sports
FIFA,
licensing. Like, dude,
UFC,
they have a ton of cash.
and they have that deal with Disney too. I think that ran out though recently because now Ubisoft's making a
And
Disney
BioWare.
game. Bio, yeah, they got Bioware, but they destroyed Bioware. Oh, gosh.
Bioware is ruined. It sucks because they made so much good stuff.
I know. And then EA acquired them, and it was like down the drain.
Like I don't know if I'm going to play Dragon Quest again
I don't think I am.
because
Anytime
the
I play,
last one Inquisitor was so good though. I'm like, man, this is classic Bioware. And then Andromeda comes out, and it's like, what is this?
it's broken on every level.
I'm like,
Well,
the
you know what's
story's
killing
boring, the characters are boring.
EA though? Their
Hmm.
own proprietary game engine that was made for the Battlefield games, first person shooters, and they're making their developers use it on every game, including
Doesn't
racing,
work.
including games like Mass Effect. It doesn't work. So
Doesn't work.
the developers are like trying to figure out how to tailor it to
It
regular
doesn't.
stuff.
It doesn't work. I'm like, you go, whatever.
Because you know about
They
this,
I
right? The Frostbite engine.
Yeah, the Frostbite, yeah, and then you see Unreal just killing it.
Because it's so easy. To my understanding, Frostbite, even for the Battlefield games, it's just not intuitive. It's not
It's not
like
too much
code
going on.
friendly. It's
No,
too rigid.
I like it for the. I mean, the ultra realism thing, I guess, is cool. Destructible buildings and all that, but not every game needs that.
And that's the problem. Not every game needs that, and not
Like you
every
don't see
game.
Modern Warfare do that, and people play more modern,
Oh my
play
gosh.
more Call of Duty than they do Battlefield.
Yeah, and Call of Duty went into space and everything. You had space battles.
Call of
So,
Duty is ridiculous
like
now.
people don't
It's been
care.
it's like Madden. They push out something every year. And I'm like, you guys need to have some like real quality stuff. And I really hope Microsoft now, since they had to do a lot of negotiating with the government to get to them acquiring it legally after their $70 billion
They're still going through it
acquisition
too.
fee. Yeah, but they had to relinquish the cloud gaming to Ubisoft. That was part of the deal because they had a monopoly on the cloud gaming part. I'm like, this is insane. This is too
It's
much. Like,
crazy because they were banking on
guys, like,
cloud
yes,
gaming.
the gaming industry has a monopoly. It's Sony and it's Microsoft. That's it. It's been like that for a while. Why are all of a
Nintendo.
sudden okay? Nintendo is like the kid you found on the side of the road when he was 2 and you felt bad, so you kept him in your family.
Oh,
When
don't
it
tell that
comes
to
to
my
so,
buddies. They're Nintendo heads, man. They love Nintendo. Everything they put out.
they're probably closets, but it's fine. Anyway, my point is like now all of a sudden we're bringing this out when we've only had like two real options in terms of what your Nintendo is a quirky thing. It's its own thing. You can't compare it because it has a whole different demographic they're targeting. But Microsoft
Exactly.
and Sony have always like dished it out, which is why they've been acquiring these studios at this clip. You know what I mean?
I mean, we need another competitor, I think, in my opinion. Um,
Yeah.
but Google, I feel like Google should have been the right one, but they failed miserably. But I just don't think Google understands
No, 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 no,
hardware.
no. Google, see, I think that could Google's already got its hands in so much other stuff. Do you really want Google getting into that?
Well, they failed with Stadia. Stadia was a dud.
Oh yeah,
It was a
oh yeah.
dud. They just don't understand hardware. Google never has. I mean, their phones, look at them, the
And their
Pixels.
AI is going to escape its facility and go into the internet and start killing people because that thing is nuts, right? So they should really stay in their lane and try to keep humanity
Put a leash
safe.
on that. Maybe put the three laws in that thing, man.
I feel like you put the three laws into that, that's more justification of killing people because, oh, humans are its own destruction. We need to save people by killing people. Like, this is where that goes.
Yeah, this is where we get the Age of Ultron coming out, man. But
Well,
speaking of
anyway,
AI,
transitioning, we're going at, we watched a movie that had nothing to do with AI for the first time in how long?
I mean, you could literally see the film grain on the film while you're watching it.
That's great, isn't it?
Yes.
I love that. I love stuff like this. Now, I told Nigel like a couple weeks ago, I'm like, Nigel, I know you haven't seen the Count of Monte Cristo, but man, because we are talking about Guy Pearce. And I said, Guy Pearce is this underrated actor.
Yep.
He's such a great villain.
Yep.
No one really talks about him as like an actor in general. Plus, your boy directed this as well. So
Right.
I mean, and Jim Caviezel's great as always. What's your thoughts?
I thought it was a great movie, man. You know it's a great movie when you feel the emotion of your protagonist, because I was pissed
Oh,
off watching
him getting betrayed like that was dirty.
13 years
In
in
prison
prison in purgatory, just getting beat up every anniversary. And you know what's crazy, man?
for no reason.
Yeah, literally no
No
reason.
reason.
Um, I watched this movie and I was like, oh, so the Mask of Zorro movie that came out was a complete copy of this. Was just the Count of Monte Cristo, but with Zorro in it. I don't know if
It's
you
got
remember
the
that.
it's got the yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's got the I mean, like, it's based on a book. Who anyone who doesn't know who Alexander Dumas is, right?
Yes,
But he's written Three Musketeers. He's one of the very famous black romantic writers of the time, and I love the romantic era. It's right around the Napoleonic time period. Lots of great authors came from it, and you can see that a lot of other stories kind of are
copied.
inspired by something like this. And it's kind of like a copy template
Yes,
of betrayal and love and vengeance and redemption at the end.
but but Mask of Zorro, the recent one that came out with
It was
Antonio
trash, by the
Banderas,
way.
it was
Did not like
good.
it. I
It's
didn't
like a
like it.
carbon copy of this movie, bro. Like they took
All of them
everything.
are. All of them are.
But yeah, I mean, it was a great movie. Yeah, I definitely felt for Jim Caviezel. It's funny, before I started the movie, I was like, now will this be the movie where Guy Pearce plays the good guy and Jim Caviezel is the bad guy? I was like, nope, this is
No,
another.
Jen Caviezel plays Edmond Dantes.
Yeah.
He is effed. Every point for like three-fourths of the movie is like, this guy's life can't get any worse. Like, truly.
When he did absolutely nothing. But the story of Count of Monte Cristo is a great, like, cautionary tale to be like, there is such a thing as being a naive, optimistic person in the real world,
Which he
because
did.
you will get stomped on. You like, people will recognize the kind of person you are and be like, oh, I could use this guy to my advantage. So
You know what's crazy? I haven't seen this movie in like a month, but I've watched it enough times. I've read the book. I kind of tell you guys, I'll give you a brief story and then I can have Nigel break it down. So Edmond Dantes is kind of like this poor man who's fisherman, kind of follows his father's footsteps in terms of not fisher. He works on the boats, right? Like he's
yeah,
kind
he's
of
like
like
a
a ship
sailor.
hands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ship hands. Yeah.
he's a ship hands really, and he's not very educated. He doesn't know much.
Can't read or
He's
write
very simple, and he has a very good friend who's Guy Pearce's character, who comes from nobility, extremely wealthy, and they're just friends for whatever reason. And
That's why I asked too. I was like, why are these guys friends? Maybe just because they're on the boat and they have a
I
one
think,
common interest, but
yeah,
I
and
don't
then they
know.
have an interest in the same lady and all that other crap. But
Oh
anyway,
yeah,
what happens is that Edmund ends up getting uh he meets Napoleon Bonaparte on his first exile on the island of Alba, and he didn't know it was Napoleon. Napoleon was a traitor at the time because of everything in the French Revolution. You guys can look it up.
because
He
of
didn't know it was,
stuff.
yeah, because of stuff. And then he picks up a letter from Napoleon unknowingly, and Guy Pearce kind of like goads him into it and kind of puts him in a place where he gets caught. And then he goes to prison for a long time on this very secluded island in this tower. And he escapes because he meets this man who's old, who's extremely,
Priest, played by
yeah,
the
he's
great Richard
extremely
Harris,
Richard Harris, great, fantastic actor. Rest in peace.
who also
He's
played Marcus Aurelius in Gladiator, one of my
also
favorite
good.
films, and one of my favorite philosophers too. But yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. So they meet in prison. He teaches him mathematics, how to read, all this other stuff, and then he kind of talks about like myths and treasure and all this other crap. And he finds a way to escape because there's like an attack, and they're like chipping into this tower slowly, right, to where they're trying to get out. And Richard Harris ends up dying in this whole collapse. He escapes, jumps into the ocean, gets in band with a bunch of pirates. the pirates take a liking to him because he fights the captain, and the captain's like, you know what, you could be useful. And then he finds the treasure, becomes super rich, and becomes this enigma, and becomes this made up nobility, the Counts of Monte Cristo. And he pursues I guess, a time of vengeance, I guess, in a sense where his friend betrayed him and he's trying to get his wife back because his best friend, Guy Pearce, married his wife or his fiance. And he goes undercover and makes her fall in love with him as the Count, and then reveals his identity. And then they have a nice sword fight at the end at that very tower and kills him. And then with the son, by the way, that is his. While Guy
So,
Pearce thought it was his.
couple questions because you read the book, you saw the movie a month ago. It sounds like there's going to be different things in the book than the movie. So when the the tunnel collapses, because in the book it sounds like because there was an attack on the prison. Okay,
It was something going on, yeah. It
because in
was
the
something
movie
like that, yeah.
it just shows like the ground got loose while they
Yeah,
were
yeah.
digging, and then you said what did you say? Did you say that it was part of um Edmund's plan to get her to fall in love with him again?
Yeah. So he once he knew who she was, his whole thing was to get her to fall in love with him. While at this, because this was part of the revenge plot, right? Is to
Mhm.
get his former lover, I forget her name, to fall in love with
Mercedes.
him. Yes, Mercedes fall in love with him. And then once he realizes that the boy that they have is not Guy Pearce's character's son, but his,
Mhm.
created because he saved him when he was kidnapped, right? When he was at the
Mhm.
party and wherever he was at. It was like, you know what? I need to go a little extra because this man's wealth is beyond anyone's imagination.
Right. Right.
It was it Carlos Guzman?
Oh, Luis
What's his
Guzman?
name? Luis Guzman. He was like, you're the most richest man I've ever heard of," is the greatest line in that movie.
Yeah, he was like, you could just leave. You can take your woman and
No,
leave. He was like,
he
no.
wants all of it. No, no. I'm gonna buy this tower. I'm going to kill this man at this said tower, and it's going to be great. And Guy Pearce's character cheats, does everything he can to beat him in this fight. And I think it was the greatest when he revealed himself. It's like, oh, I'm not who you think I am.
No, looks like I lost you there.
You know, he's
Oh,
like,
there you
I'm
go.
actually Edmund. He's like, Edmund. And he gets all shaken up.
See, it's different in the book. I mean, it's different in the movie than in the
Oh,
book. Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry,
done.
you're frozen a little bit. What was that?
Yeah, it seems like it's different in the book because in the movie, he just walks up to him. He's like, "Yo, guess who I am?" And then they
Well,
start
you know how
fighting.
the movie is, right? Like, there's only
Yeah,
so much you can do, and
it
that's
sounds
the
like it's
beautiful
better in the
part of.
book, obviously. You know?
Well, yeah, it's a romantic era style book. Like everyone just read the books, not very long, but the books then were made to be what's the word I'm thinking of? Acted, theatrical. Like it was meant for you to actually like participate and do that type of thing, which is why it was written the way it was, you
Right.
know. And that's why there's a little bit of dramatic flair to it. He's French. Like, what do you expect? You know, I mean, that's just how the culture is. It's great.
I mean, Ferdinand, the character of Guy Pearce.
Yeah,
I
Ferdinand.
mean,
Yeah,
he's just trash. I mean,
perfect circle, right? He gets broke because he gambles his fortune away. He's a nobody. His woman leaves him, and he has to defend his honor in a suicide mission, pretty much by fighting a guy who is way more talented at sword fighting than he is.
so yeah. So what's his name? Ferdinand. He like salt of the earth. I mean not salt of the earth. He's trash, right?
He's
And
nobody. Yeah,
it speaks on because like his whole issue with Edmund is like, look, I'm a rich nobleman and you're the son of a clerk. You should be nothing. I should be everything. But every good thing happens to you. It's like Guy Pearce's character is that guy who you know these people, you've met these people in your life
Yes.
where it's like no, even if they got food on their plate, they gotta keep looking at your plate. It's like, yo, you got food on your plate, you eating, you fine. Why you worried about what's on my plate? You know, and so I mean, from day one, he wanted his girl, he wanted his job. I'm like, dag, this guy is trash, and Edmund is so naive, he can't see what's right in front of him. I mean, the guy flirts with his fiance in front of him. You know, it's crazy.
And he doesn't understand anything.
I know he's like he's such a simpleton, like an innocent simpleton. He has
It's
no
great
idea
when he
what's going
comes
on.
back. Like, yeah, it sucks he was in prison for so long, but that taught him a lot of things that got
Oh
him to where
yeah,
he was at, right? Like,
yeah, it
dude,
made him
this
grow
dude
up.
comes, yeah, this, well, because he was very young. Like, the, the movie doesn't really do his justice. Like, these guys are very young,
Hmm.
late teenagers. So when he gets out of prison, he's in his 30s, right?
Hmm.
Like, this dude pretty much evolves into like a superhero. Like, he can do everything. He
Right,
can read. He's extremely intelligent. Like, he knows all of this stuff, right? And he's like, his house is insane. Like it, it's not even a house. I would
it's
say
a
it's more like
mansion.
an estate.
Yeah, an
It's like
estate.
a
Yes.
this thing is huge. It's got ostentatious statues in the courtyard. He likes the fireworks and all this other stuff. He does like the Great Gatsby type of party and
Right,
brings
right,
everyone in. He starts like, he's like, "Oh, who are you?" And that's when he starts plotting his revenge at this point because he talks to him and he's like, "I don't know who you are, but I know who you are,"
right,
type of
right.
thing.
I mean, it was great, man. I mean, I'm gonna
Who was
speak
the
on the
best actor in that? Who do you think? Do you think it was Guy Pearce or Jim Caviezel?
Guy Pierce for me.
He
Guy
plays
Pierce.
bad so well. How does he
I
do it?
I don't know, man. He's just so good, and he just made you hate him so much.
Every time he plays a character, I'm like, I already know I'm going to hate this dude within the first 2 minutes. How he talks.
It's crazy because like first, like early in his career, he played nothing but villains, and then he became like after he did Iron Man 3, he started doing like low budget films, but he was more heroic in the films. He was like either the hero or he was the good guy of the film.
I don't know about. I mean, yeah, I understand because you don't want to be painted as like this villain forever, but dude, think of a better guy who could play villain in 2000s than him.
uh,
How many good villains, actors, like truly?
hmm. True like villain. I mean,
If Star Wars was directed and written any better, I think Ian McDermott might have won an Oscar because he carried that movie,
oh
Episode
yeah.
3.
Oh yeah. And then
There's only
Neil,
so much good acting can do.
yeah. I mean, think about it. Ian McDermott did crazy work off of I'll say this in a nice way, off of like a bare bones script and bare bones
Might as well not
directing.
even had a script. You just made up the lines as you went.
Bare bone directing and bare bone script. I mean, let's keep it
Non-existent
real.
directing. Might as well have just had someone through an intercom like across the street doing it. I'm telling you.
Like in like Mr. Chocolate in Atlanta, you know, he directs through an intercom and then they're like, "Yo, we didn't finish the scene." He's like, "We'll fix it in post." It just keeps moving. It just keeps moving. But yeah, I mean, yeah, damn, once you say Ian McDermott, I mean, you can't really say anybody
Guy
else.
Pearce, yeah, he plays a villain, but smug. Smug, pretentious, condescending.
He's the perfect like rich kid, grew up rich kid, and when his father's wealth goes to him, he doesn't know how to handle it because he didn't earn it. Like he
Oh yeah,
just
yeah, it's trust fund baby syndrome, bro. Like
yeah, yeah,
100%.
trust fund baby.
He's like, I
Yeah,
don't know I have no purpose. I didn't earn any of this. What am I? I'm just a placeholder for my father's legacy. That's just what it
who I
is.
ordered to hit on. And even in the movie, he's
It's so true.
like Jim Caviezel got him dead to rights, and the last thing he has to say is like, "I have noble blood in me, and you'll never have that." And I'm like, I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, "Do you think Edmund cares?" Like, he's like, he
Edmund
took
is the
everything from you.
richest man ever. He's got more money than you ever had, even in your peak. And you're talking about nobility. Like, guess what? His kid has nobility because passed on to him. That
I'm like,
man
this
is
guy
so
bought
unbelievably
nobility.
wealthy.
he bought
He bought an
nobility.
island with a
Yeah.
tower just to destroy the tower. Tell
And the
me
only
how
thing he could
that's.
say is like, I have noble blood and you don't. I'm like,
I would have
so?
thrown him in the tower.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even killed him. I,
I
I,
just
I would have sword fighted him. I would have chopped off his arm, thrown him in the tower, and had some like angry French guy yell at him and give him that nasty food every day.
so in the movie he had no choice, he had to kill him. But I was hoping like in the book it would have been different. Like I mean,
There's no
cause
choice.
like I was mad for Edmund. I'm like, this guy needs to suffer. Like come on, man. He needs to suffer.
But these guys, that's the great thing about like characters like this. Like they never make them suffer. They never stoop to that level, and I'm just curious how they let them have that type of discipline. Like, yo, man, this dude's fingernails would be off right now, and
Right, right. Anybody
all
else?
these, these nasty dudes. Like, I'll be burning the skin off his feet.
I
Nasty
th-
things coming.
I think
I wouldn't
because
have gotten back with that woman either. By the way, so
I
give me
think in the
give me a
movie
break.
it I think in the movie he realized after she revealed that that's his son, he realized why she married
Well,
um
yeah, because you can't be pregnant out of wedlock then.
no, no, no. She
It's
would have
not a
been on the
thing.
streets. Like she
100%.
needed, and then
She was a nobody.
on top of that, she was her fiance was labeled a traitor and was sentenced to death. So nobody else was going to try to marry her except
Mm.
for the guy who was trying to get her from day one, Ferdinand. So what do you
And they
do?
just cheat all the time on
Yeah.
other people.
I mean,
And they
honestly,
admitted that.
I don't know if it's touched on in the book, but I got the sense that after they had sex that one time, so she could be like, "This is your kid." She never touched the guy after that. I got the sense, I got that sense, like it was a loveless like marriage that she
Oh, it
didn't
was
let
a
him
dead
touch her.
bedroom, bro. Tell
Because
you right now.
even in the scene where he after he killed the guy because the guy
Yeah.
was like, "Yo, you're sleeping with my wife. I gotta honor her." He kills the guy. They're talking across like two staircases from each other. They're not even in the same like area. Like he's talking to her across the room and he's like, "Yeah, I just killed the guy who was the husband of the chick I was sleeping with. So what's up?" And she was like, "Oh, why'd you do that? He was just defending his
But
honor."
that
He's
was a
like,
beautiful. That was great. Wasn't that great how he decided to do that? Because you see, like the division between them. Like there is a
"Yeah.
gap of
Yeah,
emotion and love. All that. There's
it's
none
like
of
we
that.
talked about before, like tell me the story without telling me the story. You know, you do that with framing, you do that with scene composition, and the fact that they're like it's the same staircase, but it's like two different
It's a huge
sides.
start. Yeah, it partitions the room, right? Because you have this giant foyer. And you
Yeah,
got these two giant staircases, pretty much, and they walk. She's on one side, he's on the other. And they're
and
screaming at
she's
each
the
other.
one thing he always wanted, and even
Yeah,
though he has her, he doesn't
he doesn't
have
want
her.
her. Yeah,
Well, she doesn't want him, and he doesn't have her. Like she obviously slept with him once because he thought that kid was his kid, but she did what
smart
she had to do
to
because
survive.
yeah, and for her baby's survival, obviously, because he would have been on the streets too. You
Had to
know,
give it
that's
up
how it
to
was back
win.
in the day. Like, as soon as a chick's dude died, she had to find another prospect or because they didn't work back then, you know.
I could never do that now. All the
I know.
competition of like being with a widow, you can never be that guy.
Yeah.
The only way for you to be that guy is if you died yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have a legacy. At this point, the only way you can outdo it is something crazy. And
And that's the
it's
thing. I
a
mean,
yeah, it is what it
Ferdinand
is.
Ferdinand lost everything. He thought he had legacy. He thought he had a son. He didn't. He lost
And
everything.
he died broke,
Yep.
alone,
Yep.
and it's the best part.
And he said it himself. He was free and clear in the movie to run away. Comes back, he's like, "Hey Edmund, let's do this. I can't live in a world where you have everything and I have nothing." I was like, "Whoa." I'm like,
You sure
"Bro,
about that, boy?
I guess you can't because you're not." And I felt like the final fight scene in the movie was a little short. I wanted a little more repartee. I wanted a little more. I mean, I'm super critical about fight scenes. That's my
But
thing.
he's not even trained to fight him. That's the thing. Edmund knows how to fight because he learned how to do it in a tower and being in a pirate crew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other guy only did it because of fencing. That is not a real life application.
Did true, true. Did the book say how many years Edmund was on the pirate ship? About how long he was?
It doesn't say no. We're making assumptions. It's so in the movie they said what 15 years that she saw him or something like that. I want to say.
13. Well, he said
Well,
he was in
13.
this
He was in prison
for
for
13
13.
years, but he doesn't say how many years he was out of prison. Because he does
It
say
takes a
I was
while.
here and there. Like he tells her, like I was all over the place.
Couple years just because you just take the assumption based on sailing and all that and how time consuming
Yeah, he
that
had to
is. Get
find
the
the treasure.
treasure.
Yeah,
He had to find the treasure. He had to find like Luis
he
Guzman's
had to set
character.
up his
His
status.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. He had to create this
this persona.
alias, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah. And yeah, that takes a little bit of time. But I mean, you can kind of look at it like look at the kid, right? And how old he is, 17, 16, 17. You can kind of make the determination from how long
yeah. I
he was
think he
gone.
was 17 because
There you go.
he graduated or something like that.
There you go. So 17 years, long time.
So that's an extra
I
four
don't know.
years of just preparation.
Yeah, but
Like,
would you, and this is classic, right? Would you give up 13 years to be the richest person on the planet?
nah, because it doesn't really riches doesn't really matter to me.
I know, but that's just like what everyone's like, yeah, I could do. I'm like, nah. So after year two, you'd be like, nah, get out
Nah,
of here. Let's go.
nah, and
You
riches
know?
don't matter that much to me.
But he did they said 13 because it's in a direct parallel to how long Joseph was in prison for in the Bible, right?
Right.
And he became the second Pharaoh. So you can kind of see these
The
parallels
parallels,
drawn
yeah.
in other stories, right? And
Hmm.
well, I mean that's Joseph was a true thing because that's like Egyptian history and that actually happened. But it's just fascinating to me that even books like that always have some kind of back inspiration too,
Yeah, because at the end of the day, nothing's original anymore. I mean, humans have been on this earth for too long for anything to be
The
original.
Bible kind of covered all of it, and
Quite
we're
literally, actually.
recycling from that. No,
Yeah,
we are. You're like we're recycling all the biblical stories at this point.
quite literally. I mean, there's so many. The Bible covered like almost every story scenario to where it's like, oh, that's just a such and such story. That's just a such and such. It's like, all right, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah. The most the book that sold the most copies of all time obviously is going to get copied a little bit, all right? But yeah, man, I mean,
Yes,
I honestly, you might be surprised by what I'm about to say. I feel like the movie wasn't long enough. It's 2 hours and
it was an
12
hour and a
minutes.
half. It was 2 hours and 12 minutes.
I feel like it wasn't long enough.
Not long enough. What do you mean? That's a
Well, no,
long
two
ass
hours and
movie, dude.
7 minutes if we're not counting the credits.
That's a long movie in the early 2000s.
Oh yeah, in the early 2000s, that's like you can't go past that. Nowadays we can. We have 3 hour movies. We have 2 hours and
Four,
40 minutes. 4 hours.
4 hour movies. 4 hour movies. Yeah.
I feel like
Oppenheimer is what 3.5, 340.
no Oppenheimer. That's three
Yeah,
hours. Like 3 hours cold.
dude, I felt like 4 hours and 20 minutes right there. Tell me, tell me by the time they were testing the nuclear, like, man, is this almost done?
Well, because of previous, it was like 3 hours and 30 minutes.
Oh man, that was rough. Like
Bro, it was rough.
movies, like even Avatar. I'm like, all right, I I I want to naturally put in my head, is this chapter over and how they break down the parts? Like, I need to like figure this out so I can just take a mental time out.
I'm gonna say something
You
that's
know,
controversial. I think Oppenheimer, hear me out, earned its 3 hour run, but I think Avatar did not.
it's not controversial. Avatar could have been cut, but we understand why Avatar is like that because it's an experience, and we've already said this once.
It's a tech demo.
It's shot once and it shoots blanks after you rewatch it because it just doesn't hit the same.
It's a roller coaster ride.
100%.
You can't experience a roller coaster ride on your home computer screen or whatever. You got to go to the place and you got to ride the roller coaster. So unless they're going to
100%.
re-release it in theaters,
It's
good.
not the same,
Yeah,
you know?
it's not the same at all. But I
It's
think
like
this
driving a
movie,
pre-owned Ferrari knowing the previous owner beat it up. Like, it's just not cool,
like in
man.
a Ford and Ferrari, when he was like you, when Christian Bale was like, you bought a car, you bought a speedster, you're driving it like a school teacher or something like that. He said like, of course it's going to cause problems. He's like, are you saying there's something wrong with my car or something? I'm like, I mean, he makes a good point, man. Don't buy a supercar if you're going to drive it like a. Well, I was about to say something controversial. If you're going to drive it like a school teacher, like you got to
What were you
feed
gonna
it speed.
say?
Nah, I'm
I
not
already
gonna
know what you're gonna say. You might as well just say it. Cut it out later. It's fine. Tell me.
no, because then that gives more work to me. But I think this
I
movie
feel
would
the
have been.
same way, but dude, here I have a Hellcat Durango that goes 200 miles an hour, 710 horsepower. I barely
Mhm.
drive it because I work from home,
Oh yeah,
but I drive it like a normal person, and I spent a lot of money on it. $120,000 car, and I drive it speed limit, and I shouldn't be doing that. Carroll Shelby was like always like that because I've had plenty of his cars. I've spent a lot of money on his name, and it's worth it. It's like, man, he's so right though. Why have a race car if you're never going to like beat the
gotta
crap out of
feed
it?
it speed, man. It's what it's built for. Put that gas in and go. I mean, what do
So
you
you're
think,
saying
D?
this movie wasn't long enough. I think it was long enough. Now the fight scene, I think I like it quick because what is it? Justice is swift, but let it be hard or something like that along those lines. And that's pretty much what happened.
I wanted to bask it in a little more. I feel like the movie would have been solid with at least 30 more minutes.
Oh, were you of all people saying that's a 2 hour,
I
40
know,
minute movie?
I know. But hear me out. I feel like so much time was spent in showing how he became uh the Count of Monte Cristo that we didn't get
Which is
enough
fine.
time. Yeah, it's fine, but I don't think you should cut any of that. I don't.
No,
I
because it makes the character like you grow attached to him, and when you feel the fact that he got screwed over, you're like, oh my god, I'm just hoping Guy Pearce dies at any moment, type of thing.
because you're in there with him. You know, they don't really
That's
cut
it.
to they don't cut to anybody else. You stay in the prison with him until he escapes. And I
I
think
love that.
it's good. It should be that way. I just think there should have been more time spent at the end when you see him formulating his plans. Because like there comes a point where he's a count, and then all of a sudden he just starts knocking people off the board. You
I
know,
love it.
it's just boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I kind of wanted to see like some setup. You kind of just see the results, but I kind of want to see some setups. Like, oh, that scene when we were talking about business, I was doing this. I was setting you up for this, and
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
boom, boom, boom. You know, and
Just sucked him dry with the casinos and all that. It was just like, yo, this is awesome.
I mean, the dude bought a whole bank, so like,
He
so
spent
Ferdinand
so
couldn't
much
do.
money on this. Like, I can only dream of having that kind of cash. Like, yo, this dude's like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos put together rich. Like, this
Well,
dude
you
ain't
see
no
in the
joke.
movie, he took a bunch of the gold with him, and then he had to keep sending his pirate buddies there to keep
To go get
unloading
more.
to get more.
Because and when he bought the house, remember he gave him a carriage of gold
Yeah,
and like jewels. He was like, I want to buy your place. And he's like, oh, you're not doing that. And he's like, shows him the carriage. He's like, okay, I mean, I guess I can do that.
I
But he has so
doubt that he
much money.
counted that. I doubt he counted.
No,
He was probably just like, give him all
because
this.
you saw how many chests there were, right? There was so much of the chests. It's like he would have been good for life with like three of them. Let's be real, and then just invested the rest by buying the bank and all the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, that guy was filthy rich. I mean, filthy. And you can kind of tell the way he was acting. He didn't care. He was like, the money's just a tool.
Oh yeah, no, he
It's just
didn't.
a tool.
He would use it all of it up to get what he wanted, which was to have this guy fall. And that was the best part. Like I didn't want Ferdinand to not understand what it was to not be him. Now we kind of wish it was a little longer, but I think the movie that it didn't do a good enough job on was the fact that this is an elapsed period of time. This is not all at once. But
Yeah,
you know, this guy is suffering for a little bit before he ices him on that island.
yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And question. Now, this movie came out in 2002, and then Passion of the Christ came out in 2004. Do you think this movie got Jim, I can't pronounce his last name,
Caviezel.
Caviezel? Do you think Caviezel got Passion of the Christ because of this movie?
I
Because he
think he
looks,
was already doing Passion because that movie took a long time, as you know. And Mel Gibson,
oh
when
yeah.
he makes his movies, he does it. He's no joke. He's a fantastic movie maker. Um,
I mean,
regardless how
Passion
you
had
feel about him,
so,
okay, it is no that movie. Like regardless how you feel about it, like everyone's got to watch The Passion of Christ because it's just so theatrically done on so many levels. Like regardless of how you feel about the man was tortured before he was crucified, and that was an awful way to go all by
I
itself. And
mean, it
Mel
holds
Gibson,
nothing back, honestly.
dude, it was nasty. Like how he was flailed by whips with glass at the end, and you can see the guy who was doing it, the Roman soldier who was doing it, set up like he was like enjoying it. I'm like, damn, yo, man, this guy
I
put
saw it
all of the
once in
pieces,
theaters with my mom, and I still remember it vividly. Like that's how crazy it is.
dude. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was a
you're
little.
saying it right now, and I'm envisioning it in
It's
my
scarred, yeah,
brain.
because you don't have to see it more than once. I don't need to see that movie ever again.
Yeah,
Why would I need to see that again? That's like so ingrained in me that probably the most famous person in history went through that, right? Regardless of how you feel, if it's true or not, it's just nasty. And Jim Caviezel, man, like I'm telling you, like this movie put him on the map, I think, in terms of what he can do, but he just had hit after hit in the 2000s. And then he was in Person of Interest. I love that show that your boy Nolan did. Jonathan Nolan
yep,
produced it
yep. But
and
yeah,
directed it. He wrote it too.
I think uh, I think that because every time what's his name, Edmund came on screen and he was like all disheveled and stuff, I'm like, yo, that's
He
passion
just
right
came
there.
back from filming Jesus movie,
Yeah,
just getting
I'm like,
whacked around.
that's the passion,
Telling you
right? But
that
one last question to close out. If you were to remake this film, who would direct it and who would be the two titular stars?
of today,
Yes.
who would direct it? Kenneth Branagh or
Mm,
Guy Ritchie.
Guy Ritchie. Okay.
You already see
Interesting
where I'm
pick.
going with this.
Interesting pick.
Um, Ferdinand's character would be God, who plays Slug really well that you just want to slap the taste out of their mouth, like awfully smug. Benedict Cumberbatch as Ferdinand and Edmund. So we need someone who's culpable and you feel bad for, but can play pizzazz really well. Well, Benedict Cumberbatch is a little. If we had, he's a little old, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's hard because everybody I think about is older. There's not really these hit stars nowadays, these
Not
young
that are young.
hit
No, dude, there
stars.
isn't.
I'm just thinking, so let's put age aside, you know. Let's just have a fantasy casting because I can't think of any. There's like besides what's his name from Doom,
Isaac. Oh, Timothy Chalamet.
Timothy Chalamet, and he's like what, almost in his
He's
late
28.
20s. Yeah, he's almost 30.
He
He
just
just
looks like
looks like
he's
he's
10.
13. But there's like no hit like young cast guys anymore.
Okay, so
So,
all right, I'll go back a little bit. Vigo Mortensen as Edmund.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Jennifer Connelly as the one Mercedes.
Okay.
And then I would stick with Benedict Cumberbatch because you have to have a smug English fan, and Benedict Cumberbatch is as good as any in terms of actors. He happens to be English.
So if I'm doing a fantasy casting and age doesn't matter, well, let me do the director first. Ridley Scott? No, never mind.
No, we have to go back to Ridley Scott from like the 80s.
Um, either Wolfgang Peterson
Okay.
or he did Troy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, he did a good job. Yeah, I know who he is.
or I'm gonna sound like a shill for saying this, or Denis Villeneuve.
Jeez. But this is not a genre.
I mean, Prisoners is kind of close.
In terms of period pieces?
No, no, no. I mean, like in terms of like just torture of a character.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about like period pieces that have like they've done
Yeah,
it before.
it's
You
not
know,
really his thing, but now if I was to cast, um, hell, you could do Hugh Jackman as Edmund. I was gonna say Henry Cavill, but I feel like he's
all right,
too.
if you have Hugh Jackman as Edmund, you need to have an equally big dude for Ferdinand. Then
That's true. That's very true. I
you
forget. I
can't have
always
someone
forget
who's
how
like this
tall he is.
beast.
I
Yeah,
forget how tall.
because you're like, yo, why would this woman like not go after this man and marries this dude after she was with Hugh Jackman? You need someone who's comparable.
That's true. Well, Jim Caviezel was pretty much taller than Guy Pearce, but people
Yeah,
don't
but
know that.
he didn't. He wasn't imposing. You
Yeah,
get
he
what I'm saying?
wasn't.
He doesn't have an imposing.
He wasn't. Yeah.
If Diego
Ah,
Luna could speak English a little better, I would have picked him because man, that man can act.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Maybe
not about
Ju-
his English, it's his accent, right? Like he would have to like perfect the accent for me to like be okay with it, you know. And it's not because of he's fantastic, but he has an
maybe
accent, and that's fine. But I mean, if he had someone like Diego Luna that was American or something, I would be all for it,
maybe Jude Law as Ferdinand.
dude.
Eh,
Fantastic choice. How about Carl Urban as Edmund?
He's I don't he's too Carl Urban looks like he chews metal.
Anthony Starr as Ferdinand.
That could work. Or would he be too bad?
No, he would be
He would be good.
outrageous.
He'd be good. Maybe
Plus, he's a Kiwi anyway.
Randy Quaid as Edmund.
Randy Quaid, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
I think of Randy Quaid. You already know what I think. Independence Day, bro.
Oh, wrong Quaid. Wrong Quaid. What's his name? Dennis Quaid? Is it
Dennis Quaid. What?
wait, which Quaid am I thinking about? The guy who plays
Randy
it.
Quaid. Randy Quaid was the Independence Day. He crashed into alien ship, right? And he was screaming. Dennis Quaid was like in oh, he was with another Jim Caviezel movie called Frequency, where he
Okay,
played his
no.
father in the
Different
past.
Quaids. Yeah, I saw that one. That was
Jack
cool.
Quaid,
Jack Quaid.
his
Jack
son, his son,
Yes. Jack
him
Quaid.
and Meg Ryan's son. You're saying Jack Quaid. Of all
Could
people, you're
be
picking Jack
Edmund.
Quaid.
He
Edmund, what?
plays he plays Beta pretty good, but
Yeah,
he
but
also
Edmund is beta for like 2 seconds, bro, and then he turns into a god.
maybe Jake Gyllenhaal.
Sam Worthington,
Same word.
Jake Gyllenhaal, James Franco. You might as well just pick James Franco at that point.
Dear God, no. We're not going there.
Why not? All
No,
right, so
man.
for the woman, who are you picking for the woman? Mercedes.
Who am I picking for the woman? Who am I picking for the woman? Hold on, pick. If I could, I'd pick Monica Bellucci, but I
Ooh,
mean, yeah, I could pick her. You know, we're doing
yeah, pick
fantasy
her.
casting.
Screw it.
Monica Bellucci. You know,
I like Jennifer Connelly because she's played those parts before, and
she
she's
has,
hot. So, you know,
but Monica Bellucci is actually French.
Italian.
Corrected.
Wasn't she in one of the, which James Bond was she in?
Monica Bellucci. Ah, can't
She
remember.
was the one when they did the thing on the ship on the yacht. I remember he was in the she was in the showers.
Yeah, I can't remember. Either her or Femke Jensen. Jean Grey from the X Men movie.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And she was also in I Spy with Owen Wilson and Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. Yes,
Wasn't
indeed.
Antonio Banderas in there too? Then he played the guy that Owen Wilson was jealous of.
I don't remember that movie that
There was a
much.
Spanish guy who she did a stakeout with him with in the beginning, and Owen Wilson was all jealous, and then that's when he recruited Eddie Murphy, the boxer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was so long ago. I remember that scene
Dude.
when he's boxing and he has the camera in his eye and Owen Wilson activates it while he's getting tortured, just getting beat up. He's like, oh, oh.
Oh
I'm
God,
like,
dude,
how did you
movies
not
then.
realize you had a camera in your eye before you go to a boxing match? But okay.
So Famke Janssen or Monica Bellucci.
Hmm.
All right, so if I had to pick one more, I'd pick Jennifer Connelly. If I had to pick one more, you're gonna hit me for this because I'm gonna sound like a sellout, man. But Margot Robbie, man, I'm telling you.
I knew you was gonna.
First off, she can act. Okay, it's not like she can't act. She's
No,
not
she
just
can.
looks.
She
She can
can.
act extremely well, and I don't know, man. Some about women with intoxicating features like that. You know, I'll just hire them every time if you can act. Let's be real. How many attractive actors or actresses that can are just as equally skilled acting as they are with their looks? Let's take Brad Pitt out because Brad Pitt's probably one of the greatest at both ever. Right?
Hold
Let's be
up.
real.
Let's also add the category of is not a human garbage pail. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, we've seen it lately where actors think they can just say whatever.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, Rachel Zegler, I heard, got fired from Snow White. It's a
Is she
rumor, maybe.
really?
It's
I
a
think
rumor,
we
maybe.
caused it because we talked about it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
I know. I think it was Patrick Bet David. He probably called Bob Iger's like Bob. He was like, "Listen, I don't know what you're doing with this girl. Pay her
He's
out and move on."
he's probably like Bob. If it ain't making money, it don't make sense. You know.
Oh, dude, no one's better than Patrick anyway at that. But no, it's true because Bob Iger. I think we talked about Disney before, where they're going to be doing more damage. I forget what I said to you, but he said it in their meeting, like their profit meeting, like their budget meetings and stuff. He's like, we're going to do, it's not damage control, but they're going to be a little more mute when it comes to these,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
make
No,
better
for sure.
choices. And you're like, I'll believe it when I see it, type of thing,
Yeah, yeah. I did say that.
which means firing people. And I'm like, if they fired her, which she'll never get another job again because she blew this one and no one wants that. Like, let's be real, guys.
She was in like
Well,
Shazam. She's in that new what's that Jennifer Lawrence franchise with a bow and arrow, Mockingbird or something like that. She's in that Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
She's in the new Hunger Games, or a chick who looks like her. I swear, actors and actresses are starting to look all alike, and that's by design. Okay, that's by design. These studios they prop up certain actors that look like another one. But yeah, she was in like two big movies, and she was
Is
gonna
the
be Snow
woke
White.
is it, so let's be real. If Disney follows this, are other ones going to follow suit with this whole woke thing in terms of like just saying whatever zesty headline to get you attention because you think that's what people want to hear
Well, I see.
about being a man hater, about whatever it is.
Well, I think you can see that that's starting to pitter patter off, not die, but starting to dwindle off because people realize going quote unquote woke, you go quote unquote broke. You know, I
It's
mean, look at
true.
Disney. Look at Disney's year.
I told you this. How many, like, what, a couple months ago? Compare Disney from 5 years ago. It's not good.
It looks
We're
like a
talking
totally
five
different
years
company.
ago. Completely different. Just look at stocks. Look
It's
at the stock like
unrecognizable.
price. It is completely different. And during the COVID, right, during Disney Plus, it was at its peak, and now it's like,
It died.
and this is not just Bob Chapek anymore. This is beyond him. Like, there's a lot of people in the ranks of Disney right now where they're making some really awful choices because they think this is what people want to continue to do, and like, it's not true. You have
Or they're one of those people who's trying to do that.
It's not going anywhere. Thank God. Like, I'm glad that we're finally like waking up to sense like you can say no. You
Because
don't
you
need
can
to have
see
all
it.
this.
You can
Yeah.
see some of the showrunners that they've hired and some of these people that they've hired to make these things. It's like, oh, you really believe this stuff, huh? This isn't just like an agenda to you. This is like, oh, you really you're back
Okay. Well,
F
we'll fire you
crazy.
with your principles. We respect you for your principles, but you're not helping us make money.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like I said before, I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it. you know.
So who do you think would be a good Snow White then if she got launched?
I mean, any, pale chick with black hair at this point, I mean, is better than
Christian Stewart?
stop. No.
You just said any one with black
I
hair.
said pale chick with black hair. She doesn't
She's
have black
pale.
hair.
What do you mean? She did the
She doesn't
Twilight
have black
series.
hair. Kristen Stewart amazes me because she was great as a child actress, and then she got older, and it seemed like she just phoned in every performance.
She wasn't even my favorite. Ashley Green was my favorite in there. If you know what I'm talking about, the girl with the short hair.
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, ah, I don't know, but yeah, this was another good one, my nomads. Hope you learned something. If you didn't, I hope you just came along for the ride. But catch us on the next one. Be creative. Peace.